The next section I want to touch on, which is very important, um, which is also another crisis, I believe, in this country that we face today, is a housing crisis. The affordability of housing in America in 2025 has gone absolutely through the roof. Um, I believe the median home price is anywhere from like 350,000 to picking up on 400,000 um, for a home or a single family detached home in America. Uh, and again, that's just a median. So it's cheaper in other areas and more expensive in other areas as well. But and there are areas in between. But the median home price is somewhere between 350,000 to $400,000 $400,000 in terms of total purchasing price, which is to me extremely astronomical. Um, Personally, it's a crisis because the affordability of people who make a modest income, and I say modest, but modest to me means anywhere from um, $15 an hour to 60, $75,000 a year. To me, that's a more modest income or average income of pretty much the largest percentile of our population here in America. Um, and based off just those numbers alone, with the average household income, I believe is around $60,000 a year. Um, if the average income household income is 60,000 a year, then you most definitely would not be able to afford a home that's 350,000 to $400,000. Um, Anyone that works in the banking industry would be doing something completely unethical if they were to approve someone a loan that had that level of income, um, which is going back to what happened in 2008 with the Great Recession and subprime lending. But I'm gonna leave that right there. Um, so housing, as you can see, most people either rent or have a mortgage. Um, you have other things like light bill, water bill. Um, some people have a gas bill, depending on where you live, which city or town you live in. Things that are consistent or what would be called recurring recurring expenses, things that you pay for on a month-to-month basis or a recurring basis in terms of utilities and bills, things of that nature. Um, so this is usually one of the biggest pieces of the pie that you see over here to the right. Um, this orange portion of the circle, and also you can see the percentage. The recommended percentage that's been put out there um, is to not spend above 35% of your gross income. So when I say gross, that means what you make before, you know, taxes are withheld, and things that are withheld from your check, like paying taxes, income taxes, federal and state. Um, but 35% of your household income is usually the higher end of that threshold, uh, which is something I think most people should be able to stay within, depending on which part of the country you live in, right? Um, Also, the next section is things like transportation, which is another key thing. Most people have a car note. Uh, Again, to me personally, there's another crisis that we face here in America. Um, this is really closely tied to consumer debt, which is car notes. Um, I think car notes are one of the biggest pieces or obstacles that can hold people back from being successful as an investor, because it could take up a huge chunk of your resources or your income dedicated to a depreciating asset like a car. Some people live in cities where they don't have to uh, use a car or have a car. Places like New York. I just visited San Diego for a business trip a couple of weeks ago, and they have transportation out there as well. Trains. I used to live in Atlanta. Atlanta has the MARTA system where they have buses and trains that get you from point A to point B across the city. And I will say that the transportation system in America um, is kind of not up to par compared to some of the experience places that I've experienced over the course of my life, traveling around the world, places like England, London, England, Tokyo, Japan, who have superior public transportation, in my opinion, because they're just levels or leaps and bounds ahead of us in terms of public transportation in populated areas. So, other thing that I want to talk about is the section of groceries and subscriptions, utilities, things of that nature that most people um, spend most of their money on is groceries. Uh, that's one of the things that's really affecting people currently today in America. Um, and the main cause of that is inflation, with prices soaring. Uh, the ability to buy healthy options in the grocery store is decreasing. It's becoming more and more unaffordable for the average family in America and the average individual, the American citizen. Um, so that will be a section that also takes up a pretty large chunk of a person's total income on a month-to-month basis. And then from there, there are things like subscriptions, more things like utilities, internet bill, which most people need. With the pandemic, a lot of people started working from home, so internet became very essential for most people to have in their homes, especially in America. Cell phone bills, you know, things of that nature. And there's also a section for insurance and taxes as well as debt. So I know most people usually pay a premium for their car insurance uh, or their health insurance on a month-to-month basis as well. So there's a major section in there as well. And all the way at the bottom, and I think this is strategic, by the way, is debt. So this section is where you allocate um, money that you have in your income focused towards paying off debt or credit card debt that you have as well, student loan debt, car note, car payment debt, or mortgages, right? This is the section where you try to allocate as much as you can within your budget to pay off that debt as fast as possible. Uh, some people take different approaches to paying off debt. Like I said, paying off debt is one of the things that is critical to building that foundation before investing. Making sure that obstacle is not preventing you from reaching your goals and your investment goals in life. Um, a few of those, just to touch on a few of those strategies. Um, some people believe that paying off debt with the highest interest rate first is the best approach. Some people believe that paying off the smallest debt in terms of the total amount, and then working your way up to the largest, which I think Dave Ramsey calls it the snowball effect, which is more of a psychological thing as well. Being able to pay off debt, smaller debts, and working your way up um, allows you to feel that sense of achievement psychologically, which encourages you to keep going to pay off debt, uh, which I think is an effective strategy. There are other strategies to pay off debt that are more sophisticated and advanced. But me personally, when I paid off my student loans, back in 2019, and I paid off my car, first car that I ever bought, back in 2019 as well. Um, I took an approach where I saved up money to pay off those debts in a savings account, and took those things out one at a time, which they pretty much were the same amount essentially. So it wasn't necessarily a strategy that I used. It was more of saving as much as I can from my total income, which I budgeted for. I used a budget to do um, in my savings account to be able to use that savings account balance to pay off any debt that I may have or have had at the time.